Yeah, originally this was supposed to be a Skype conversation between me and Phil. Philip, not Glee. We saw the movie last night, and we both got home pretty late, and we were like, yeah, we'll Skype the conversation, yada yada. I had a horrible coughing fit, and I think he probably just passed out. So yeah, last night we saw, I was supposed to say X-Men 2, X-Men Days of Future Past. The movie was alright, it was alright. It's, wasn't expecting a lot from it, and before I go into spoilers, in all seriousness, it's like, what you see in the trailer is really what you get. There are some cameos and stuff here and there, but if you would have followed, like, the news about it for, like, last year's San Diego Comic-Con, you kind of know who's in it. They do have, like, expositions in there of what happened to some people from the First Class movie and all that shit. Thanks for doing that, because there were a couple times, like, Phil and I were like, okay, so what about this? Are they just gonna write it off, or, And of course, like any Marvel movie, especially because X-Men was like the first ones to do it, there's an after credit sequence. Not main credit, like full credit sequence. And obviously I'll go into that when I go into spoilers, but also, yeah, we didn't see in 3D. I didn't want to see in 3D, because the First Class I didn't see in 3D, and for how First Class looked, didn't seem like it looked like, well, for 3D. This isn't spoilers because you see in the trailer, the stuff with Quicksilver would have been fine in 3D if they did it right, but I don't think anything else in that movie wouldn't have made any damn sense for 3D. So, like I said, this movie was okay. It wasn't bad. It pretty much did what it needed to do. Like, we traveled back in time and fixed things, like, if you don't know by now, it's obviously gonna be fixed. It's one of those things, like, you knew that was gonna happen. And, I don't know, I feel like maybe people are, like, what do you call that? Thought it wasn't gonna succeed. I don't know, I would have been happier, just like with, as I've said a bunch of times, with, like, Dark Knight Rises, if they all would have died in the end, like, all this for nothing. Maybe that's just me. Anyway, but it ended well. Anyway, I'm gonna get into spoilers because I don't know what else to say. So spoilers, you get to see Hugh Jackman's ass. That's for spoiler. See his ass. I wasn't sure if you were gonna see his ass, because it's like he travels back in time, and then he goes to, like, get up, and I'm like, I don't know, you gonna see his ass, and it was like a wide shot, you're like, oh, if he gets up and he has no pants on, there's gonna be ass. But then it was like a close-up shot of, like, his back, you're like, oh no, you're not gonna see it, and then he, like, kind of walks further away from camera, and you're like, oh no, there's some booty. And of course you hear a bunch of guys going, oh, and a bunch of women going, ooh, Kitty Pryde Shadowcat, she does her, Jedi mind trick on Wolverine. He gets sent back. In the beginning of the movie, you see that it's her and Bishop and Blink, and I forgot who the fuck else. I might have to IMDb that. And some other fuckers. Yeah, so you see them. Oh, what's her name? Fan Bingbing was Blink, and it's like everyone in, like, the future cast. They look fine, you're like, okay, whatever. It's just that her, she looked like a cosplayer because of, like, the lenses and a couple, like, color strands here and there. Sunspot, that's it. Oh my god. I was like, what the fuck's his name? Because obviously, we were joking around calling him the Human Torch, because obviously, that's the future people and yada yada, and there's the Sentinels and they're killing them and all that fucking shit. And, wait, there's someone else who was there. Oh, yeah, Warpath by Boo Boo. That guy who was in the Twilight movies, who I still can't believe someone named their kid Boo Boo. And now all I think about is that episode of Bob's Burger, when Louise is, like pulling on her hat. Bow, bow! haven't seen Bob's Burger, why haven't you? It's awesome. Anyway, so so the future people, they're attacked by Sentinels. Shit goes real. And then Kitty Pryde sends... Yes. And then Kitty Pryde sends Black Guy back to the past, yada yada, whatever. So, of course, they're alive, because you see them, like, all die. You see that, you know, Iceman, duh, he's there. Blink gets stabbed. She just gets stabbed a lot. Like, everyone gets fucked. Not in the good way. So, that all happens, and then, of course, they meet up with Storm and Magneto and Cerebro, sorry. Fucking riff tracks. Magneto, Cerebro, Magneto. Anyway, so, meet up with the people, and they're in, like, I think they're in China somewhere, obviously. They're in China, and so they were like, oh, that's how everything's fine, blah, blah. And then, of course, the whole thing of they wanted to send back, Professor Xavier back, and they're just like, Kitty Pryde's like, oh, well, I could send you back, like, a week, maybe a month, like, you know, a month or whatever, but we're looking at, like, 50 years here, like, you know, like, the whole, like, it's gonna tear you apart, blah, blah, and you knew, like, just as they're saying, like, it'll tear you apart, you'll die, blah, blah, and of course, you know, you're never gonna have to send back, Wolverine. They send him back, and that's when you see his ass. He goes, he finds, Xavier, and you're like, he's walking. Now, if this is in continuity of the last movie, he shouldn't be walking, but he's walking. Fine. And then they later explain it's because the serum that Hank, takes that keeps him keeps him human looking. What do you call that? Xavier was taking it, and because it makes you non-mutant, so he can walk, but he has no powers anymore. So, there's that. Which is good, and is a good enough, like, explanation on not constantly having your actor in a wheelchair, and having him, you know. Ugh. But I just feel like, well, obviously the majority of the movie takes place in the past, and every so often they'll flash back forward to the future and shit happening and all that stuff. I just feel like it's like, you're like, oh shit, Bishop's gonna be in this movie. He's not, he's in it for like 5-10 minutes. Well, he got the beginning scene, so let's say that 10 minutes, and then like, in between it, so not even like, it's like just only a few minutes, that's it, like, you know, whereas obviously the movie is about, young Xavier and, Magneto and Wolverine and all that stuff. I get it. But it's just the way, they kind of hyped it up, like, the way how they hyped it up, the promotional stuff is like, oh, Bishop's in it, and Klaus is in it again, and, oh yeah, there's all these people, and they're all gonna fight together. Like, they made it seem like, in a sense, a bit X-Men 3, where there was, like, a lot of them, and everyone's there to, like, kick ass and all that stuff. But it really isn't, you know, and I remember there's, towards the end when Storm finally, like, flies up and actually does some shit, and feels like finally the bitch can fly. Like, how many movies have been waiting for her to do that, you know? And I know it's, like, future Storm, and I kind of wish they gave her the 80s mohawk, you know, just, you know, but anyway, she looked fine with the short hair and stuff. Oh yeah, Evan Peters as Quicksilver, and we were talking about, like, Phil and I were talking about this, we're like, there's, in the Marvel Universe right now, we have two different people playing Quicksilver. We got Kick-Ass, and we got Kick-Ass' friend. Oh well, you're both hot, and that's fine. But we were like, are they gonna establish the whole, like, that's Magneto's kid thing? But it was funny, because there is one scene where when he lets, Eric out of his cell, he says, oh, so you can control metal? And he's like, yeah. He goes, oh yeah, my mom knew a guy like that. And so that was kind of funny. You're like, okay, I get it. The plastic cell he was in, it's like, I know the Quicksilver gives him a note that says, you know, mind the glass. It's obviously, if it's glass, then obviously Magneto could have escaped it this whole time. but it was obviously plastic, but he called it glass, and it was just like a technical thing that made me go like, oh, that's wrong. And if it's, like, just, and the way how it shattered, it was like, alright, fine. Like, it was one of those things where, like, fine. I'll leave it as that. Like, maybe Quicksilver doesn't realize it's not really glass. Like, how does he know, right? And of course, like, he puts his hand on it and it, like, vibrates. And Philip is like, oh, he's like, my mind went somewhere else. And all I'm thinking about is like, tracking two guys off at once. What are you talking about? In Vietnam, and there's all the mutants, and you see, Havoc. Kind of wish Havoc was in there a little longer. You see Havoc's in there, and then, like, they were really, like, the story of this was, the whole reason why they're traveling back to the past is to stop Mystique from killing Peter Dinklage's character. And of course, of course, she would be in the movie a lot, but it's just like they had her in the movie too much, if that makes any sense. I don't know. I agree with Phil when it was just like, I'm starting to get a little annoyed with her Mystique, her version of Mystique. And he goes, Rebecca Romaine did better. And I was like, I know, right? And she was married to John Stamos for some time. I think she did that much better, but I don't know, like, again, it's kind of like how I feel about Anna Paquin's Rogue. It's like, it's too whiny. But I understand it's like younger versions of the character before they're just like, alright, fine. I don't know, it gets a little whiny and I'm just like, come on, and that, a lot of times that's why I hate what they do with the female characters. Like, let's keep them whiny before they're the strong ones, But the guy characters, even when they're younger, they're like, nah, I got this. It's like, come on, people, can we not do that? But anyway, so we see a lot of that. You get to see a young William Stryker, because you see the guy, and when Mystique is in disguise, looked at the dog tag, you see Stryker, you're like, oh shit. I didn't think they would, I kinda wish that they just would have left it as, just look at the dog tag and that's it, and then not really refer to him by his name, But obviously that wouldn't make sense if he's a, what do you call that? Pretty important character to this movie. You're gonna have to call him by his name. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. So, Magneto is let out. At one point, Wolverine gets all, like, jumbled in the brain because Stryker is there and he's just, like, getting flashbacks, like, all that stuff. So, of course, he freaks out while he's laying there and she's Jedi mind-tricking him, and he, like, cuts her and all that stuff, but of course you knew, everything will be fine, blah, blah, blah. The guy who played Nixon was just, like, he just reminds me of the Futurama version of Nixon, where he's like, I'm really jolly, blah, Oh, man, I don't know what else to say about this movie. It's like, it's okay. And like I said, things happen. Like, they went to the past, they stopped, her from killing anyone, Of course, Magneto decides to be crazy as always and, do shit. But then you see future Magneto, kicking some ass. Which also is like, if you have control over metal, like if you're that good, especially old Magneto, how did you miss that one that just, like, stabbed you in the gut, But, whatever. Needed to build tension and whatever crap and... yeah, and, like, whatever shit for, thinking that they're not gonna make it. Of course they make it. Everything's fine. Yeah, Quicksilver was only in there for, like, a short time. It was just to help get Magneto out of the prison in the past. And then you see him, like, kind of towards the end when he's making his, like, speech of, like, I will kill you all, in that voice. And he's holding, like, a little girl. But you're thinking, like, aren't you guys twins? Isn't Scarlet Witch a twin? Like, so why are you, like, a teenage boy and there's a little girl? Anyway. That's the, the fan in me going, but whatever. Anyway, so, the movie is what it is. It was there. It wasn't that bad. Like, it wasn't great. It was just there. Like, I really enjoyed X-Men First Class. I was actually, like, I was actually very surprised on how good it was. Then again, all the other X-Men movies, you know. It was funny because when Wolverine was trying to convince Xavier, young Xavier, that, you know, like, you have to, you know, just stop taking the medicine stuff, stop taking the serum shit, and get your powers back to help. And he was like, oh, look into my past, yada yada. And it was just like stock footage of Jean Grey. And Philip goes, he goes, oh, that's how she's gonna get her credit for this movie? That's how she's getting her credit, you know, from stock footage. And I made a joke about how many mortgages she has to pay. If you didn't know, Famke Janssen took the role in Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunter because she had a mortgage to pay off. So that's why she took the role. So that's my joke now, which is funny because she actually did pretty well in Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunter because that was a stupid movie. It was a great stupid movie. But she Nicolas Caged it, so she definitely had fun in it. But yeah, so we made that joke. In the Who's. So, oh yeah, because it's in the past, he has the bone claws and not the adamantium rage claws. Oh god, it was all like exciting because you're like, oh shit, fucking. I'm sorry. It's just because like, oh yeah, Bishop's gonna be there. He was there for a short time, and you really didn't get to show off much of. Like he got to show off his powers, but it was just still like. You know, at one point he's got his BFG and he's like, I'm a black guy, and then he explodes and you're like, oh, well, okay. Alright, you know, of course that's in the, oh my god, they did make it kind of part of the movie. I'm just rambling on now. Yeah, so when everything went fine, in the new future, so of course Logan wakes up, Jesus Christ, he is ridiculously ripped. Like, he's starting to get Stallone ripped with the veins and stuff. I'm like, I need you to calm it down a bit. And of course he sees Storm, he's like, oh my god, she's okay. And then fucking Anna Paquin, cause I think they were gonna have more scenes with Rogue, but Anna Paquin just makes a cameo. And Phil just goes, she just stepped out of a doorway? That's it? She just stepped out of a doorway? Which, also at the same time, that's all she had. That was all her role was. But in the title sequence is that she got credited before Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, so we were like, it was one of those things where like, you were there for literally like a second, you know? Anyway, so you see that, you see they're fine, and then he, you know, Logan goes downstairs some more, and you see a woman with red hair and a red dress. And then everyone in the audience goes, oh, you know, and then I just grab Phil, I'm like shaking him because he would go as Phoenix, because why not? And then he's like, Gina, blah, blah, and he's about to touch her, and then of course Scott's there, and you're like, oh my god, Cyclops is there! Like, I feel like that last part, the fact that, you know, well, she's Phoenix now, so Phoenix is there, and then Cyclops is there. Like, that little added thing, and the little joke about, you know, like, hey, don't touch her, like, that kind of tension bullshit. It made me, like, happy about the movie, and made me kind of enjoy it a little more. It's the whole, like, you know, and everyone know, like, I felt like this movie, one, it was made because just to kind of tie in all the movies, and two, just to be like, hey, why not have young and old Magneto and all that shit? Like, why not, you know? But yeah, I was fine with that, and then, yeah, so the movie ends with like, woo, everything's fine, we're all good, you know, Wolverine saved us, and all that shit, and fucking balls and stuff. I'm tired. But yeah, like, everything worked out, and all things are good, and sandwiches and stuff. And then, the after credit sequence, you just see like this cloaked figure, in like a desert, and I felt kind of stupid. It took me a while to like understand it. Like, that's how fucking tired and all medicated I am. Anyway, so it goes, and then you see all these people like chanting the name, and then you see like the Great Pyramid being Tetrised in, and I was like, it took me a second to realize, like, wait, you're showing very far into the past. My brain thought, who is building pyramids now? Why is there a necessity to build more pyramids? And are the Egyptians confused and praising it? I just was not getting it. I was like, huh? And then you see the figure, and I was still kind of like, well, the camera pans over, and you see the person, they have their arms out and all that shit, and I'm still kind of like, and then you see, four figures on a horse, a little bit towards the back, and I'm like, still not getting it, still thinking it's future time, and then it ends, and I went, huh, I had that kind of moment. That probably that after credit sequence needed Paul to be there, because his freaking geek ass would have, said it immediately, and I would be like, oh, okay. No one in the audience knew. Phil was like, who is that? And I was like, oh. Again, still jumbled in the brain. So while we're walking back to the train station, I'm looking at my phone, I'm like, why am I... Mind you, earlier in the day, we were talking about the next movie after this, which is X-Men Apocalypse. And it took me a while to be like, oh my god, that's Apocalypse. You're thinking X-Men Apocalypse, there's gonna be no, X-Men, as in we're talking about the character Apocalypse. It took me so long to realize that. And then, while I'm on the train, on the way home, and we're kind of texting each other back where he's on his train and stuff, I was like, oh my god, this is that's the first mutant that was ever born. It just dawned on me, that was the first mutant ever born, while I'm even reading about Apocalypse on my phone. It took me that long to realize, yeah, my brain was everywhere. And I was like, oh, first mutant ever born, because then I looked at a picture and I was like, why does it look like Thanos? And I was like, how is it I was like, we're not doing X-Men versus Avengers right now. We're not doing that. Anyway, so, Guardians of the Galaxy. But anyway, so I was like, oh, right. I keep doing this. First Avenger, dear God. First mutant ever born. And those are obviously the the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Duh. And it finally came to me. But I'm like, this is not my phone. But I was on the train, on my phone, and I'm texting him, and I was like, oh my god! I'm just mind blown! But it was okay. See it if you want to see it, just to kind of fulfill your Marvel movie, X-Men thing. I wasn't I expected more from it, and it's also I didn't expect anything from it either. So yeah, it was okay. I would say this more as a matinee, rental to matinee status. I couldn't see anywhere where 3D would have been that amazing. Again, some parts, but not the full thing. Anyway, I don't know, I feel like it's after last week with Godzilla, I'm just kind of oh, okay. Anyway, fine.